Hey everyone, thank you so much for signing up for this session, Preparation for Your Next Real Relationships. My name is Coach Shay Owens and I run a business called Coaching by the Word, and I help my clients restore their lives and relationships through coaching them in individual, group, or couple coaching sessions. Working with me directly as your coach, you will have the confidence, motivation, and the comfort levels of pushing yourself so that you can move beyond your fears, doubts, and the struggles of quote-unquote life, but both professionally and personally, which includes anything that is blocking you from truly living your best life. You'll be able to set and achieve goals, all while setting boundaries so that you don't go back to that familiar place that wasn't working for you before. A little bit about me is that I'm a Christian, a wife, a mother of 6 who enjoys serving and giving back to my community and helping others set and achieve goals. I'm always putting in an effort to be led by the Holy Spirit. Now I'm going to take you through this course, so I hope that you are ready to have thought-provoking moments to become more prepared for your next real relationship or to help you strengthen the one you're currently in. If you haven't already, be sure to sign up for Shawnee Neely's session, Being the Chooser, or Nina Iman's Should We Live Together sessions. Also, by staying until the end, you'll receive bonuses that are only available through this course. We want you to be provoked mentally in a way regarding relationships that you weren't before. Maybe you're in a new relationship or you're trying to identify if the relationship will actually work. But it really is meant for you to open yourself up to become better with all relationships in your life. Now, if you are already in a relationship, this course is also here to help you do the work. Maybe you're having struggles or taking it to the next level of love, romance, or even getting out of your own way. Either way, there will certainly be some aha moments just for you. This session is about preparing you and helping you become more aware of the ups and downs of a real relationship. Many jump into a relationship because of the sparks in the beginning without fully understanding what type of commitment they're really entering into. First, I want to go ahead and define commitment. It's an engagement or an obligation that restricts freedom of action. So that is actually a vow, a promise, a pledge, or an oath. Either way, when you get into a relationship, you are saying that I am restricting myself from my selfish ways. My actions will line up with the promise that I made to you by being committed in a committed relationship so that I don't make a fool out of you and me. There are going to be 7 areas that we're going to actually review. 1, overcoming the obstacles of dating. 2, questions you should ask yourself before you get into a relationship. 3, the different phases of a relationship. 4, learning to effectively communicate. No matter what area of your life you apply this to, it's definitely going to be beneficial. Number 5, how to resolve conflict on your end without hitting below the belt. 6, the red flags. There's many times that you won't see it until it's too late. And I always say that love in the wrong hands is worse than hate. And number 7, setting yourself up for a successful marriage. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, why are there so many obstacles with being in a relationship or trying to be in a relationship? Let's go over a few common obstacles that many people face. Write down the one that best describes you so that you can begin to work on that area of your life. Telling yourself you aren't good enough or you don't deserve to be happy. You may even feel like karma is playing a part in the reason you aren't in the type of relationship you really want. Having self-esteem issues will also cause you to look at all relationships differently, whether they are within your family, friends, or even down to your coworkers. You may not think you are deserving of a specific type of person, or they can't or won't be interested in you because of how you look, what you did or do for a living. Or maybe it's that you feel the person is out of your league. Either way, it will always result in you talking down to yourself. If you are in a relationship, this will also cause you to always feel like the person is looking or waiting for the next best thing, when in fact, you actually may be that best thing. If you do suffer from lack of self-esteem, I can almost guarantee that it's affecting you in more areas other than your dating life. There is a work that will need to be done within yourself to help you develop more in this area. Be sure that you aren't getting into a relationship just for the sake of being in a relationship. Knowing your worth is crucial before getting involved with anyone. There may be unintentionally sabotaging your relationship, or actually you may be actually sabotaging your relationship before it even begins to flourish. If you find yourself staying too busy, you stay at home, even when you're invited out with friends, or if someone wants to take you out, you say no for one reason or another. Someone has an interest in you, but now you can find all of the small things wrong with them, even though on paper they would match who your ideal person would be. Or you begin making excuses by saying, oh, I need to lose weight, or something along those lines like that. Again, talking down to yourself, which really leads back to low self-esteem, because you lack the confidence in yourself and you have the insecurities that are stopping you from taking anyone seriously. It boils down to you having a fear of being rejected. Think back to when you had your first, second, or even third relationship or crush. You probably jumped right in and may have called it puppy love. As you get older or experience more relationships that didn't end so well, the fear you have of getting hurt is familiar because it's happened before. So the real fear is not actually dating or falling in love. It is the feeling of what if it doesn't work? What if they step out? What if they do this or they do that? But I want you to just ask yourself for just a moment, what if it did work? Fear will cause you to run towards excuses. It doesn't allow you to open up and become vulnerable with anyone, which is necessary in forming any type of relationship, whether friendship or a relationship. You have a wall that's probably 10 feet high around you, trying to protect your feelings and emotions, and you won't even allow the right person to come into your life because of that fear. Now, I'm not referring to someone who is raising all the red flags already in the beginning or even during the relationship. I'm speaking of the times that you're actually going to sabotage the relationship before it reaches its fullest potential. You will always fear what you don't face. The real question behind is, what is your definition of compatibility? If you think you need to agree on 95% of the things in your relationship, then you may not be compatible in most of your relationships. Think about it. Do you always want someone to agree with you on everything? One would think that this person is just a yes person, or you should think that they are just agreeing with me just until they get me hooked. Don't get me wrong. You need to be compatible, but a level of disagreement is actually healthy for you, as it will challenge you to be better, think differently, and handle this relationship a little different than you did in your past. My mother always said, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it that matters. So don't think just because you don't see everything in the same way, shape, and form that you aren't compatible with one another. You were in love at one time or another, and due to separation or death, that relationship is no longer present in your life, yet everyone else, no matter how great they seem, they just can't seem to bring you back to that feeling of being in love. It may even be that you are holding on to that old feeling that you once had, and no matter how many people you meet, no one just seems to live up to that person that you were so deeply in love with, or the feeling of love that you had for them. If you were no longer with them due to a separation, then you have to really go back and examine, why is it that you're no longer together? For some, it may be that you have maybe have moved away and distance played a part in it, infidelity, or you just couldn't seem to get along. But whatever the reason is, you're still holding on to it. You may actually have a soul tie connection with this person. Christians believe that your soul can be tied to a person even if they were no good for you. That is something that Christians believe, and to overcome it, prayer is definitely needed in this situation. There are soul tie prayers that you can say, but you must also believe. It is not a sin to be with or marry someone who you are not spiritually in line with. However, if your beliefs are different, can you really be on one accord? and make the relationship work for the long haul, think about how often you may have disagreements when it comes to spirituality. Maybe not in the beginning of the relationship because you are experiencing full bliss between you two. However, down the line, speaking long term, things like going out to your place of worship, having children, and making a decision on how they will be raised, family and friends becoming intertwined for gatherings and holidays, you really have to think, will those areas cause you to end your relationship? It is extremely important to be open and honest with how you are spiritually, and also allow the other person a safe space to be open about their views on this matter. Some religions forbid you to do some things or function a certain way. Depending on your religion or spiritual beliefs, one or all of these areas can cause huge strains on the relationship. There may even be talk of conversation, and that alone can end the relationship or tear families apart. Actually, there actually may be talk about converting as well. So you also have to be careful with that when you're having those conversations. I personally believe in being on one accord in my marriage to keep the peace, harmony, and for me and my home to keep certain spirits from trying to destroy our marriage. So being equally yoked in my book is number one. First and foremost, let me say my hat goes off to you for your strength in making the decision to wait until marriage. It takes a certain type of person to withstand all of the pressures of doing what some consider to be not the norm. So don't allow anyone to make you feel bad for making a stand. Why do you really consider this an obstacle? Is it that you're trying to appease someone? Are you fearful they won't understand and walk away? Let me just tell you, you've made a decision, and if someone doesn't understand this, then guess what? They aren't for you. Stop trying to be in a relationship that doesn't allow you to stand for your values. In this area, you should give the why behind this. Is it because of intimacy or sexual matters, or is it more spiritually? It is extremely important that you are super transparent so that you aren't misleading anyone. In order to build a healthy relationship and withholding sex until marriage, your foundation has to stand on other things that is more important than physical intimacy. Dating backwards. Oh my gosh, where do we go from this? If you are single and you get with someone who isn't adding value to your life as well as being able to add to theirs, why would you even consider dating them? I am speaking on the people who are lazy, with no ambition, bouncing from house to house due to circumstances, not because of an altering life situation that may have just happened. Yes, it's okay to be with someone who wants more out of life and they are taking a little longer to get there, but please don't get with someone who you know darn good and well won't accomplish anything in life. They are okay being lazy and being taken care of. I always say, when people show you who they really are, you sure enough better believe them. Expectations of who or what you think they should be like, or what your relationship should look like from start to finish, not allowing any room for error. I'm going to say this to you. If you have filet mignon taste on a fast food budget, you better think about it. You want someone to help you come up, sure, that's fine, but you also have to show that you have the drive to get there. You have to be able to go somewhere and also allow room for growth and error. Some people walk away at the first sign of imperfection. Scripture says clearly, stop trying to take the speck out of someone else's eye before you take the log out of your own. If you realize most aren't living up to your expectations, then you may want to re-examine them and just make sure that they aren't unrealistic. Dating is about getting to know someone and becoming a part of their life, or becoming open with them and with yourself about your needs, wants, and desires. In order to do that, you must be totally vulnerable to the process. You can't have fear and doubt and expect the relationship that is going to be long lasting unless you end up with someone that is truly understanding and you are really transparent with the reasons why you have the fear. When you or the other person is vulnerable, it allows a level of trust to grow between you both, and it will allow the relationship to grow because you have trust. Intimacy isn't just about having sex, it's about the connection. Here are some tips on overcoming these obstacles. So for lack of self-esteem, every time you say or think negative about yourself, immediately counteract the words or the thoughts with something that is completely opposite of what you just said or thought. And I would even write it down. A daily way to do that is by literally writing each and everything down, each and every single step down about how amazing you are and what your strengths are. Taking no action. You want to begin placing yourself out there. Be open to meeting new people that you may have overlooked before, and figure out what it is in you that's stopping you from being available or placing yourself on the market. Fear of being or getting hurt. In life, there are no guarantees. I would remind you not to ignore the red flags and become blind to the obvious red flags in a person, but discover within yourself where the fear is originating from. Make a chart of all of the fears surrounding your fears. Then counteract them with something positive, or write down the scenario when you felt that way before and how did you overcome it. And you want to begin asking yourself, what if it did work out? This will help you see the qualities in that person. Compatibility. You will need to determine what level of compatibility you are looking for and then write them down. Be sure not to become superficial in this area. And also write down the things that are most important to you about the person you are entertaining the thought of being in a relationship with. Which one stands out to you the most? It's okay to make a list. You have to allow room, however, for growth in this area, meaning the potential they also possess as well. Fear of never falling in love again. You will need to accept that you are no longer with that person. It would never be fair to date someone while still in love with someone else. You need to pray off those spiritual soul ties and allow yourself to be vulnerable, open, and transparent, and stop making comparisons of what your new person may or may not lack in the new relationship. Get to know them on another level and enjoy the moments. You may be surprised what can happen. Being spiritually compatible or unequally yoked. You will need to be 100% transparent in this area of how strong of beliefs you have in this area. The longer you try and fake like it's not important to you when it really is, will for sure end the relationship because you will not be happy in the long term. And be okay with allowing the other person to disagree with you on what they feel. It is better to know the person for who they truly are and what they truly think. Waiting until marriage to have sex. Hold true if this is important to you. Anyone wanting to be with you, really be with you, will wait. It won't be easy for them, but they will wait. Also become transparent with them with the why behind you wanting to wait. It's okay to tell them your past mistakes and how you've made mistakes by jumping in bed too early. Or it may be even deeper within you. It may be something traumatic that happened to you. Once you are vulnerable at a vulnerable place with them and allowing them to be on the inside, if you don't express the why, how can you really expect them to understand? Dating backwards. I want you to think, and then think again before any decisions are made in moving forward with the relationship. Everything that glitters is not gold. Even if a person seems to have it all together, just take your time and really watch. You want to write down the goals for your life, what you really want and see for your future, and then see if they line up with that. Also, when dating backwards, does the person mirror the other people that you dated before in your past? If so, take a closer look on whether or not you really want that relationship to go anywhere. Your expectations can't be met. Now, this is all on you. Only you can decide if your expectations are too high, not high enough, or just right for where you see yourself in the future. I would just tell you to do some self-examining before you try to go off of someone else who may be great. You may let them go, and they may actually be your helpmate. So just again, think about your own expectations, and if they don't meet a few of them, it still may be okay. Fear of being intimate or vulnerable. Put the electronics away and have a conversation. This will allow you both to feel closer. A wonderful activity is to place 20 questions into the fishbowl, and each one of you pull the questions, but both of you answer it. You'll want to write the questions down that allow some thought-provoking insight on who they really are, what they think, and how they feel. And make what's important to them important to you, and vice versa. Set some time apart for date night. Now with the questions, I want you to do something for me. I want you to take a moment and think about your past relationships. Have you ever thought to yourself, if I knew then what I know now, I would have walked away? Or, I don't even know who I am. I've lost myself in this relationship. Or, how did I get to this point? We used to be so happy. Then asking yourself questions before you fully commit to someone shouldn't seem like such a bad thing. In my experience with clients, I've realized that people don't take the time to think of really what they want, need, and desire out of relationships. They enter into relationships too fast without really thinking if this person is going to be what's the best for them. It's usually because there is a fascination by what the person is doing for them in that moment, what you can see in front of you, and not taking a moment to think if they will be good for you in the long term. Have you ever heard the term, what looks good for you isn't always good? Over the next couple of slides, I'll show you a few questions you may or may not have asked yourself before. Write down the ones that really stands out to you and try practicing them with anyone that you may be considered dating for the long haul. Of course, you want to be attracted to someone, and they should treat you great, especially in the beginning phases of the relationships. What we're saying is, don't be so easily moved by the words, but make sure that their actions are lining up. It is easy to have a feeling of falling quickly when things are going right. If you are a person who hasn't had the best relationships, someone saying or doing all of the right things can cause you to either look at them sideways, which can cause you to doubt everything and anything that they're saying or doing, which can actually sabotage the relationship before it even begins, or can cause you to fall really hard. Their actions and words are causing you to be easily moved emotionally, as it is a familiar feeling, or maybe it's a feeling you've always wanted. So you end up rushing right in without taking a moment to really think, what am I looking for long-term with this person? So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the actual questions that maybe you have thought before, and it will be confirmation for you, or it will be that aha moment. Relationships take work. If you are not willing to put in the work for real, don't even entertain a serious relationship. Just continue dating, go on dates, and make sure you are open and honest with the person you choose to date so that they won't feel in any way misled by or about what your actual intentions are. Going into a relationship is not a cure for depression, anxiety, or stress. If you end up in the wrong relationship, you can do more damage to yourself and the other person, and also anyone you currently have in your life. I always say that love in the wrong hands is worse than hate. So I'm going to give you a few minutes on the next slide to pick out the questions that stick out the most to you. Here are just some of the questions I feel are important when entering into a relationship, but you may be in a relationship already and still finding yourself needing to ask these questions. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but take a moment and really look at them and then think about your answers. Then use the questions to help spark other questions that are going to be important in identifying whether or not this person is actually going to be, whether or not you're actually ready to be in a relationship or to take your relationship to the next level. On the next slide, I will go over a few of those questions for you. I want you to look at number 1. Now, when I'm coaching, I tell my clients to set boundaries for how they will respond or react towards someone. No matter how upset you get, you should never allow yourself to be pushed beyond your personal boundaries. I like to look at boundaries as a personal speed bumps in my life. It is not there to fully stop you, but to help you slow down. You have to remember, for every action, there is a reaction, whether good or bad, there's always going to be a reaction. They didn't create the show Snapped for no reason. So you have to stop just pointing out the flaws in someone, and you also have to learn to set those boundaries and don't hit below the belt. Setting a boundary for the person you're dealing with prevents them from pushing your buttons purposely. You will need to share with them what your limits are. You can't get mad at them for not knowing what you never told them. Everything that may seem like common sense really isn't common sense to everyone. So it's important to tell the one that you're with, hey, these are my buttons, or some call them trigger points. You may also identify the why it's a trigger for you. That is the defining moment that helps them know you and know what you've been through even more. Let's take a look at number 6. Some relationships are abusive, either mentally, physically, or spiritually, or all of the above, and you need to have someone strong who will ensure that you are always okay, not someone just trying to be nosy but genuinely okay. This person can't be easily removed from your life. If they don't hear from you or see you, then the radar will go off and they will begin trying harder to hear from you, and if necessary, contacting the local authorities. Too many people are abused in relationships, and many times those are the closest to them don't even know. I would suggest creating a code word that only you and this other person knows, so that if they hear it or see it posted at any time on social media, it's an immediate alert to get you help. Abuse in a relationship is never okay. And really take a look at and think about number 9. It is always important to remember what you like to do and things you currently make you happy. Reason being, in relationships, you can become so consumed with what is best for the other person, leaving your happiness in their hands. This can leave you feeling like you've lost yourself. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few more moments on this slide. We're going to really dive in now, guys. Each relationship can take you through different phases. There's no guarantees that you will or won't go through one or all of these phases. Again, love in the wrong hands is worse than hate. You are feeling all of the butterflies. The calls during the day and the night are consistent. It seems like you are both on the same wave when thinking about one another. You're courting at this time. You are both on your best behaviors, and things that would normally annoy you may actually get laughed at. The pet peeves aren't too bad because you're in awe of your new relationship or what your expectations are going to be. If you begin to feel that love sensation right away, I want you to be careful. That is a familiar place for you, which can cause you to fall quicker. The old saying, love is blind, happens often in the beginning phases of the relationship because you actually want it to work. You may feel like this person is your soulmate, and in fact, they may be, but it can actually be a familiar to you because someone's actions or words have made you feel that way before, or you're thinking, this is what I've always wanted. It doesn't mean the person is being fake about it. I'm just saying, take your time because you'll tend to gravitate to that feeling a lot quicker. You are expected to not have any issues during this time. Everyone should be on their best behaviors. The problem lies when they aren't being true to who they really are inside. They are portraying themselves well. I call it the representative. I would certainly say enjoy this moment, reflect on what's going well, and be watchful for the areas that need some correction. Remember, open lines of communication are going to be effective at this time and key to a successful marriage or a relationship. In addition, take a moment to ask a lot of questions. Many people are open during this stage, which is great because it forms a level of intimacy that will bring you both closer. Watch for any inconsistencies in their story. People tend to always exaggerate a lot in the beginning. This is the most important part that I'm going to give you at this time. Remember what it is that you want, need, and desire. And I will say this again, and I cannot express it even more clear. Remember what it is that you want and desire out of life and in your relationship. It is great to change for the sake of the relationship, but not in a way that removes your identity because you are trying to be all that the person wants you to be. Show them who you really are. And if the changes need to be made for the better or betterment of your relationship, then great. You come to realize that everything that glitters isn't really gold in this phase. You will begin to see some flaws. You may choose to overlook them or brush them off. I suggest asking many questions and watching the actions to ensure that they are in line with what they actually do. True colors are beginning to come out. The butterflies you once felt may slowly feel far and few in between. The relationship isn't as exciting as it was in the beginning, depending on the circumstances surrounding how long you actually took to get to this phase. No, there are going to be disagreements throughout the relationship, even if they are very seldom. Know that you have to handle them in a way that is not going to be detrimental to your relationship. The longer you stay in this phase, you may begin to wonder, will the commitment ever happen? If you are a person who doesn't mind a long life with someone in the dating phase, that is totally okay. But if you are the type of person who is starting to wonder what's next, this is where you want to have a conversation about what your expectations regarding full commitment are. Some don't actually want to get married because they like the security of knowing that they can walk away at any given time. If you begin to have children during this phase, now you have someone else to think about how it's going to affect them, what their needs are, but at the end of the day, you have to make yourself a priority. Never feel obligated to stay in something just for the sake of the child. This is the reason you see so many couples break up after the child turns 18 and are out of the house. This is also the stage where that honeymoon phase may no longer feel like a honeymoon. You aren't spending as much time together, even if you're living in the same house. You find yourself running out of things to say. You may even wonder if you're really in love. But on the flip side, this can also be a time where you're still getting to know one another. Maybe you haven't moved in yet because you enjoy leaving your home and going over to their house. The excitement of meeting up and going out on dates. Even if you're doing this for years, this can still be so much more exciting. This is a great time to still be committed without all of the strings and stress of making a marriage work. Some find this phase easier than actually being married. No matter the duration you and the other person are dating, go at your own pace of what is right for the both of you. Rushing it or trying to be on someone else's timeline can cause unnecessary stress and cause a relationship to fall apart or be forced in a direction that's too quick. Since relationships aren't perfect, you are going to have some disappointments. I'm not speaking of cheating or abuse in any way. I'm speaking of things such as communication breakdowns, the broken promise that may arise from time to time, and the expectations you have of the other person. They may not actually live up to what those expectations are for the relationship. The first argument can feel like someone just knocked the wind out of you, depending on how you both face it. Definitely inquire on my book, Don't Let the I Do Become the I Don't. Your expectations can really cause you to feel disappointed with the person you choose to date. Either they were showing you who they really were, and then at some point, or your expectations of them changed. It's okay to understand that although someone is a great person, it doesn't mean that they're great for you. Whenever there is a breakdown in communication or you don't communicate effectively, can cause unwanted stress in the relationship. Again, I can't stress how important communication is in any relationship. When you are feeling disappointed, know that it's okay to express how the words how the words or actions made you feel. Holding them in will only deepen the feelings of disappointment, and now you've closed the lines of communication. It is best to bring up how you are feeling and when you're not fully all wrapped up in your emotions and you can think clearly, especially if you are really upset. It is best to remember the boundaries that you set for yourself. You can't predict the other person's reply or actions no matter how many times you've tried to play it out in your mind. We all want the feeling of stability, the feeling of security, like you can finally exhale. You may get that feeling of stability within the first 2 years of dating someone. You have established a level of trust and openness, a comfort level that places you at ease. Some look for stability in finances. Some look for it in the fact that they're in a relationship. You have to know what makes you feel stable before entering into a relationship. This way you will know if you're really getting the stability you need. Allow yourself room to change what you thought you needed into what you're actually getting as well. There are no full rule books on a perfect relationship, and never allow someone else's breaking points become your breaking points when it comes to the stability in your relationship. Phase 5 is a level of commitment. For some, it's marriage. For others, it's just knowing you're exclusive and you're okay with just being boyfriend and girlfriend. Either way, no one can ever determine your comfort level of commitment. Only you can do that. Effective communication. I always say that the way to effective communication is to have the person that you're speaking to understand you within the first or second time of explaining it. What do I mean by that? Think about it this way. Would you speak to a 4-year-old the same way you would speak to a 15-year-old? Of course not. Their level of understanding is completely different. You have to understand how they understand things. I tell my clients that when they're trying to convey how or what they're feeling, whether it's in the good times or the bad times, you still have to communicate in the way that they understand. So if they don't understand it, then that falls on you. The only way it falls on them is if they're just not interested in what you're trying to say or you're being brushed off. The most difficult time for a couple to communicate is when they're upset and feelings and emotions are all over the place. So it is important to remember your boundaries that we spoke about in the beginning and use that as your foundation, especially when you're angry. Trust me, the more you work at it, the easier it will become. Here's an example of effective communication. So I was breaking up with someone, and no matter how many times I told him it was over, he just wasn't getting it. He kept stating, we're a team. So because he liked sports and played flag football, I had to break up with him by explaining to him in this way. Because you're on a football team, they get into a huddle. Each one of the players talks about what it is going to happen during the game. They break and everyone goes to their respective positions. I then said, I was left sitting on the sidelines while the game was being played without me. So now I have retired your jersey and it can never be worn again by you. And although that may seem like a harsh way to break up with someone, he actually got it and understood that we were done. You have to always say things in a way that is going to be understood from them. So I want you to address the situation. I want you to speak, and then I want you to listen. Here are some do's and don'ts for how to handle conflict. I always go to God first and ask Him to allow the Holy Spirit to guide me when resolving conflict, to search my heart and examine it, to make sure that I'm not in my feelings, and to help me understand what the reply is going to be that I'm going to receive. At no point should you ever be subjected to physical or emotional abuse from anyone, nor should you ever become the abuser. As you can also see, I've listed a lot more don'ts in this slide because people tend to get things wrong when in conflict. That is because you're in your emotions and all over the place, and you may not think it is as. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a few moments to review this slide. I will also allow you a few moments to look over the red flags of someone who is abusive. Remember, no abuse is ever okay. This is why it is so important to have someone in your corner who is going to be okay, who is not going to be okay with you going silent on them. They are going to fight to stay in your life. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few moments to look at the physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. Again, I'm going to give you some time to look over these. Maybe you can identify with some of them. Now, just because they're listed as red flags, it doesn't mean 100% that the person will be a no-go. These are just some indications for you to keep an eye open. As you'll see, we have controlling, the narcissist, and personality traits. Setting yourself up for a successful, real relationship. Keeping God first. Give yourself time to develop into the type of person that you want to be. Know what you want, need, and desire before getting into a relationship. Know your boundaries. Be open to love, and know that some relationships are a roller coaster, but many are worth it. Talking about it, no matter what the situation is, especially if it bothers you, you have the right to express yourself. I want to thank you again for attending the Real Relationships webinar. As promised, if you stayed until the end, you'll have some bonus options.